Hi, it's Mike Stephenson here. In today's video, we're going to talk about the 5.2 release for Turbo360. Let's start off with the cost analyzer module. And the first feature we're going to start with is explain with AI on analysis chart. So the aim of this feature is a theme that we've added to the product where we're trying to help users understand what's going on. So we know that many cost analyzer users may not be FinOps experts and may not be Azure experts. So being able to sort of explain what the user's looking at is going to be really beneficial for those users who aren't experts in the technologies, and it's also going to reduce the amount of times a user needs to refer to an expert. So the way we see this in the product is, here we've got the analysis section, and you'll start seeing this explain with AI button. So either you'll see the icon here, or you'll see the text saying, interpret this for me and tell me what's going on. So for this graph here, I can click the button, and Turbo360 is going to use the graph data and interpret that with a large language model and explain what this graph's telling me. So here we can see at the top, we get things like the date range, the summary. We've got an exec summary telling me some key points. We've got the top cost drivers. And then if I go further down, we've got some key analytics points as well, and it's describing the trend and any anomalies and outliers. So it's just interpreting what I'm looking at in the graph to help the user go a bit deeper. Likewise, another place I can use this is in the cost review. So here I've got a particular chart that I'm using to do a cost review. So we're using the compare chart. And I've got this as a graph, as a table comparing May versus April. Again, I've got the explain with AI button here. And because it knows I'm doing a cost review, it's interpreting with a model, and I can see I've got a bit of a different explanation now. So we've got the exec summary and the period still at the top and some analysis. But as you go further down and it starts digging deeper, you can see we've got things like the top cost increases, top decreases, any anomalies. So it's pointing out the signal R cost was a significant change here. And then it's pointing out where we should focus our optimization efforts. So contextually aware of what graph you're looking at, and it'll explain in lower level detail what you're seeing. Next up, we've got another explain with AI feature. This time we're looking at advisor recommendations. So the problematic use case here is users don't understand what Azure advisor recommendations mean and what they need to do with them. So if we go to Turbo360, here you'll see I'm in the optimization area. I'm in the right sizing, and we've got basic recommendations. So this is where we're sort of giving you visibility of the things Azure advisor's telling you. And you can see these, like you would in the Azure portal, but the kind of key aims that a lot of customers miss these recommendations are there. And sometimes these recommendations are a little bit obscure and it doesn't really tell you what to do with them. So here we've got the explain with AI icon. And if I click that, it'll interpret this recommendation. So here we can see at the top, we've got a summary of our potential savings, a little bit of info about the carbon impact, the implementation steps for how to make this change. And then we've got a risk assessment, which will tell you some of the potential risks of making the change, rollback plan, and justification. And what you might do here is you might actually use this save to PDF button. So if you had a change process and you need to submit evidence and a plan with your change, you can effectively just download this as PDF, submit this with your change request, get approval, then implement the change. And really, even just this analysis for putting together your change request, we've probably saved you a couple of hours work here just on this one resource. So hopefully that really helps users out. Next up, we've got explain with AI on advanced right-sizing recommendations. So this is where in Turbo360, the advanced recommendations are Turbo360's own algorithms identifying potential cost savings. And you can see we've got a list of them down here we can work through. And there's a whole bunch of options. So a lot of people would go to the resource view and dig deeper. But we've also put explain with AI right here. So it's quick and easy to get to as this new feature. So this is going to explain to me an overview of the change up here. We've got some impact assessment of the metrics that'll be underpinning this change. So it'll explain to you a little bit about what the thresholds were and what the state of the CPU was or the memory and stuff like that. We've then got the summary of the change down here and the implementation steps to execute the change. We then have risk assessment, rollback, justification, and again, the option to save to a PDF. So you've got that change evidence to go and get approval for this change that you'd like to implement. This Explain with AI feature is working really well to help users. So we thought, let's put this on advisor recommendations for reservations as well. So again, here you can see I've got my list of recommendations from advisor. We've got the Explain with AI button here. And if I click that, it's going to interpret this recommendation and tell me what I need to do. So we've got the summary of the change at the top here. We've got the implementation steps down here. We've got the risk assessment, rollback plan, justification, and advice on similar options to report. You can save it as a PDF as well. Now, I think a lot of times customers potentially miss the opportunities with these. So having that explanation means you're reducing the number of times you need to go to the Azure expert to understand what does this mean. We've also added the Explain with AI to the advanced reservation recommendations too. So again, you can see we've got our list of recommendations here, and you can see we've got the Explain with AI button. So if I've got that one's consider reservation, I can click and we'll start getting some guidance around what this means and how we can implement it. So again, you can see we've got consider a reservation, implementation steps down here, risk assessment, and so on. And again, we can save it as PDF, and we've saved an hour worth of analysis for our change control. The next feature we've added is an AI agent for cost optimization checklist. So what I'm thinking here is there's a lot of common things that you might not have thought that you can do in terms of cost optimization for a given resource. And you just want a checklist to see how you're doing against those common things. So in the product, there's a number of places you can access our single view of a resource feature. So you'll be able to see this in the things like the analysis section and all of the right sizing and reservations sections. Like here, I'm in advanced reservations. And what we're looking for is this little icon here, which is the single view of a resource. So if I click that, I can then go to my AI agent tab over here. And in this place, I've got access to a whole load of different agents. And the one I'm looking for is cost optimization checklist. And if I click generate, so I click generate here, and you can see we now get some guidance at the top about how our resource is doing. So this one's not too bad. You can see we've got some, like a checklist here. So there's a possible downsize opportunity. We've got reservations acting on this. The hybrid benefits eligible, but doesn't really seem that it would be make sense on this resource. So we think this is probably not applicable. So we're fine. Things like disks and storage and networking are all looking good. So we've kind of looked through this, and it's all looking pretty good. So the only one really to watch for is that potential downsize opportunity, which could give us a small saving. So we can, if we like this here, we might leave it. If we wanted to explore that downsizing a bit more, we could go back and we could look at the right sizing agent here, which would give us a deeper dive on that. So the next feature we've added is an overview screen checklist. This is a really small thing, but I think it's quite effective. So if you see here, when I'm working at scale with lots of teams, I'll be jumping between the team nodes as I'm coaching each team, but I can't easily tell what features that team's really using. So we've added this little bit here at the top on the overview screen. So it gives me a really easy way that I can see, yes, they've got a group budget configured, anomaly detections configured, and their recommendations are all turned on. I can see they're not using the scheduler feature in this team here. So that might be something I want to talk to the team about. But as I jump between the different teams over on this tree view, it'll make it easy for me to see how they're doing. The next feature we're going to look at is the metrics view in the single view of a resource. So what I felt here was that as a FinOps person, when I'm evaluating all my different teams and I'm working with a team to look at resources we might optimize, I wanted to be able to see all of the metrics in Turbo360 without having to go out to the Azure portal. So different resources obviously have different metrics, and we were focusing on the key ones for driving like cost analysis stuff, but sometimes you just want to take a bigger look at what else is going on. So what we've done is, in the single view of a resource, which you can get to in a number of different ways, this little icon here is the one I'm looking at, and you can get to it from the analysis as well. But what I can do is I can open that up, and here we've got this new metrics tab. So we've got a whole bunch of other tabs for different ways of looking at the resource. But if I go to metrics and I can query the different metrics I've got available. So here, for example, let's say we use CPU, and we'll take the average CPU per 15 minutes over the last 24 hours. So I can just query this directly from Turbo360, and it gives me a really easy way to see how things are going. I think another good thing as well is if we think from a security perspective, we're just reducing the need to go and jump into the Azure portal if you don't need to and you don't have access, but you want to have a look at what's happening with this team's resources. Okay, so next up, we've got a new AI agent which advises you on scheduling resources. So here we've got the Turbo360 schedule feature that can turn resources off and on and scale them up and down. And great feature, does a good job, customers really love it, but sometimes it's difficult to work out if a resource could be scheduled or not, and we wanted to help the users with that. So if I go to Turbo360 here, and I go to my single view of a resource with this little icon, I go to the AI agents tab up here, and then I scroll down to the bottom of the agents, and we've got this what if analysis section. And I've got an agent here called Analyze Resource Scheduling. So if I click Generate and we have a look at the guidance it gives us. Okay, so we can see here the first thing is that the recommendation has low confidence, and it's suggesting that we probably shouldn't we shouldn't schedule this resource. Now, backing that up, we've got the usage pattern down here. So what this is really telling me is that this VM looks to be being used a bit most of the time. It doesn't really look like it's idle very often. And it's got a couple of times where it looks to be a bit busier, like here and here. And those are kind of outside of typical 9 to 5 hours. But generally, it's always in that 25% plus range from the looks of it. We get a little bit of analysis here, just explaining that in textual form. And then if you see down here, we've got things like confidence and feasibility. And really the top and bottom of it is this particular VM doesn't look like a great candidate for scheduling. I'll have a look and see if we can see a resource that has been scheduled and see what the guidance on that is. So one of the resources I actually have on a schedule, just to see what the pattern looks like, is this one here. So if you had a resource where the analysis sort of came back looking a bit like this, where it looks like the resource is idle except during office hours, where you can see it's kind of busy doing stuff, that would be a great candidate to put on a schedule and shut down. Now, you'll see as we go further down, when it thinks it is schedulable, It's also going to give you an idea of the potential schedule you could use. So that's what it would look like. This is where the down hours would be. And if you were building a schedule, this is what the schedule might look like in this particular case. So you can see that would be really helpful for applying that schedule to this resource. Okay, so next up we've got a feature called, which uses an AI agent to explain what we think a resource does. Now, so over here in Turbo360, I'm going to click my single view of a resource icon. I'm then going to click the AI agent tab, and I'm going to click this Analyze Resource Purpose. So the agent's going to come back with a response and start telling us a bit about this resource. So you can see we've got a technical and a business-focused view. The technical view is telling me that this is a VM, tells me the size, tells me what we think it's potentially doing. So we can see what Windows version, the likely workloads, and we can interpret from the resource some of the, the disks it's pointing to, the network it's pointing to, and that kind of thing. We can also look at the business tab, and it's going to try and explain that we think this Windows server's for the Document 360 team. It's running a live workload. It's dependent by the Document 360 team. The department tag is product, so that's maybe indicating it's not that clear who owns it. It's been built with Terraform, we know that. And I think if you had other tags in here for your resource, it's going to interpret some of that stuff as well. So the richer the metadata from the resource, the more it'll be able to interpret what the resource is doing. So it's a great way to see how effective your intention of a resource can be interpreted by the agent. Next up, we've got an AI agent to explain the cost drivers for a resource. So here again, I'm in my Turbo360. We're going to use the single view of a resource here. I'm going to access my AI agents, and I'm going to use this agent at the top called Analyze Cost Drivers. So the agents come back with a response, and it's basically telling us about what influences the cost on this particular resource. A lot of it's going to be driven by licensing and compute. You can see we've got some info about the particular costs down here, things that are fairly fixed and variable. Some information down here about why your bill might change next month, what will cause it to increase, what will cause it to decrease. So for people who aren't familiar with Azure, this will be quite a good way of explaining what things might change that affects your bill. Also, there's hidden costs to watch for, so there's some potential things to just learn a bit deeper about this. So hopefully it's just a really easy way to get an idea of what influences the cost of this resource. Next up, we've got a new hybrid benefit agent. So the idea of this agent is to help me understand if it's worth using a hybrid benefit or not. So again, I'm going to look at my single view of a resource over here. I'm going to go to my AI agents tab, and I'm going to look at my hybrid benefit agent down here. So this agent's basically going to give me a summary of the resource itself and if hybrid benefits enabled or not. So we can see it's not currently enabled, but it is eligible for this resource. We're then going to do an assessment checklist. So we can see down here it's the right resource type. We don't currently have it, but it is supported. The OS is good. Utilization's fine. It's not a spot resource. So then we're going to look at the cost types here. So there's a bit of information about what the licenses are likely to cost. Some notes down here about the licensing requirements. So, how many cores and if there's a saving and stuff like that. And then the key bit is at the bottom down here. So the recommendation. So what we're really saying here, if you already have a Windows license, then you will make a saving on this. So a lot of companies will already have existing on-prem licenses that they're migrating to the cloud. So in this case, you're going to make a small saving each month if you can use one of those licenses you already have. However, if you don't already have a license, The payback period for the license is going to be too long, so you probably wouldn't buy a new license to apply in a hybrid benefit scenario. But if you already have an existing one, this might be a good idea. Okay, next up we've got one of my favorite features that we've added in Turbo360 in this release called the savings tracker. And what we're trying to do here is to kind of visualize the impact we're making on a team as we make savings, because obviously what happens is we deploy new projects that can counterbalance the savings that we make in different areas. So it's really important to be able to understand, how much savings we've made and have we got better. And I think one of the really challenging things is to come up with a single point number, you've saved X. And actually, I kind of think that's the wrong question to be asking, because it's such a multivariable, constantly moving problem. Trying to get to a single point value is really difficult and probably not accurate. So what we've tried to do instead over here in Turbo360 is we've got on my tree view, there's a little menu here. And this means that this feature is available at the team level or overall for the entire organization, depending on what level you're using it at. So I go onto the menu and I can go to savings tracker. And what I'm able to do here is if we look at, say, May versus April, right, what we're doing is we're looking at the different dimensions of savings that we've got. So we've got things like other recommendations, basic, advanced. And we're looking at how much savings have we identified as a percentage of your cost in that month. So really what this is looking at, what is the percentage of waste that I've got based on this dimension. So I can see here, if we look, the cost for April was 32, cost for May was 37. Now, on the diagram here, I can see my advanced right sizing savings reduced from 9% of my cost was potentially savings. So effectively, I had 9% of my cost could have potentially been saved from right sizing changes, and I've reduced that to 6% of my cost. So what this means is that I've got more efficient, and my costs got bigger. My savings may have gone down, or they've stayed the same as part of my percentage of my overall spend. So what we're really looking to do here is, if you imagine 2 time periods, so we can either do this comparing last month to the month before, or maybe 1 year ago till today. And what we're looking for is an area graph that was bigger in period 1 and smaller in period 2. And that means we've reduced the amount of waste in our environment, which I think is a better way of measuring improvement and efficiency than it is to try and get to a single point number, which is probably not accurate. And I think this will work really well for a management team to communicate to them, look, this is how we looked, last quarter, this is how we look now, we're getting better. If you want to dig a bit deeper than this radar graph, you've also got the actual numbers down at the bottom here, so you can see, what the identified savings were, what that percentage was. And, so here you can see we've dropped from 2,900 to 2,300, while at the same time our costs had increased. So we've, reduced our percentage wastage there quite a bit. So, over time, we should be looking to keep that getting smaller and smaller to show that our FinOps activities are really impacting the business in a positive way. Okay, next up, we've got changes in the business activity monitoring module. So the first change we're going to look at is building BAM diagrams dynamically. So I've spoken to quite a few customers about this over the last number of months, and the challenge here is that when you're getting up to speed, you want to kind of get a visualized outcome, but put as little work as possible into getting there. And you may iterate and improve over time, but you want to go from 0 to hero really quickly. And the problem with our BAM module was it just took a little bit more work than customers were really happy with. They wanted to get there quicker. So that's where we've dynamically able to build the diagram. So I'm over here in the BAM module, and what I can basically do is I can create a new business process transaction here. And the new bit we've added is auto generate. So previously we had manual where in this particular model, you've got multiple KQL queries you're going to use to build a diagram. But now we've got two queries. So one's the parent query for the grid of transactions. The second query is all the items inside that grid. So if you choose auto generate, this is the new feature. And what I'm able to do, if you see here, so down here I've got my parent query for the grid. And then when I edit the configuration, this is my child query here. So I pass the request ID in, that finds all the children. And then I can basically just set a couple of properties and I get my diagram straight away. So one of the things I can do, I can even tell Turbo360 from my query result, maybe a field means that it's a certain type of shape on the diagram. So in the tracking view here, you'll see, so if I go back 24 hours, we'll have a bunch of transactions that are running through. And I can click one of these transactions. And that's basically gone and found all these stages. So with two KQL queries, I've identified there's one stage from API management and a whole bunch of logic app stages that run afterwards. So I can also click view more details and I can see, properties that I've projected in the KQL query. So I can really control what properties appear here. And I can even craft like a URL if I want to make it clickable to jump to the Azure portal or something like that. But basically in 5 minutes, you can set one of these up and you've gone from having an invisible solution that might work well, but the business can't see it. Now you've got this friendly grid. You can present whatever info you want to the users. They can click and they can see more data and see how far the transaction process has gone. You can also do things like monitoring dashboards and all that as well that we could already do, but the new feature was ready to go from 0 to diagram in 5 minutes. Okay, next up we've got enhancements in the business application module. So the first one is AI agent to summarize the resource. So in business applications here, over on the left-hand side, I've got my tree view where I've modeled the logical support view of my Azure environment with all the different applications in it. Here I've identified a specific resource, which is part of an application. And then up at the top here, we've got the new AI agents button. So what I can do here is I can say, right, give me an overview of this resource. So this will work with any resource in Azure. It's basically going to explain what's happening with this resource for me. So we can see we've got a summary saying it's a logic app in North Europe. It's got a Poland trigger that checks service bus every 5 minutes. It's got a multi-step workflow. It hasn't had any failures recently. And it's got a few recommendations down at the bottom here. And it's got a few little tidbits of information and a little bit of summary of the costs. So it's going to give you just that high level. Imagine you're a level 2 support operator and you're looking at a resource and you just go, what's going on with this? You can very easily click in here and get an overview that'll help you, just save you having to go and ask the developers for help. So the next features in those AI agents in business applications for logic app resources, we can get an explanation of those of the costs for that logic apps. This is really to help our integration customers. So here, if you're looking at a logic app, whether it be logic app standard or consumption, you can click the agent here and get a cost review. So you can see I've got my spend pattern across a period of time. I've got some explanation of what that chart means. Spend pattern in the current month down here. And then some interpretation of, what the biggest costs are. So mainly it's going to be connectors. Why does it cost a certain amount? And then I quite like this little bit at the bottom, actually, the agent does, which is this the right plan? So if you're thinking about, would I be better off on consumption or standard, you can get a little bit of guidance around that. I think this one's such a low cost, there's no reason to put it on onto standard, just for this one logic app. Interestingly, what could spike the bill? So that 5-minute trigger, but if it was increased, it'll increase the costs. and then ways to reduce the bill if you need to. So just nice interpretation to help people. If you imagine you've been dropped into a project to try and take over what somebody else has implemented, this is a great way to help you understand what this environment does. So next up, we've got an agent to recommend what we should monitor, which I think is quite a cool little one. So here I'm in my resource, and we've got the monitoring tab up at the top here. And whatever Azure resource you're looking after, you're going to have metrics to be able to monitor here. And this little AI metrics advisor button will help me work out what I should monitor. So if I click that, what this is going to tell me is, looking at the monitoring that I've currently got enabled, what things should I monitor and what things maybe aren't that important. So it's going to help you. So what I might do is say, what action throttled events might be really important, actions failed. It's going to give me some guidance on thresholds for this resource. Maybe I want run started throttled events. So if I can pick the ones that I like here and just apply them, and that'll basically apply them straight away. I save that, and then I've got my monitoring in place, and then I can just tune it as I need to from there. So really easy way to kind of get some guidance to get you up and running and help you pick and choose which counters make sense for a given application. Next up, we've got the AI agent to give you a security guidance around a particular resource. So the reason we've put this in is just to help customers get some visibility of things they maybe want to have a look at, particularly from an operations perspective. You've been handed over an application to support, whether it be from your internal team or a vendor, and you want to just see how things are looking. So here I can go into Turbo360. I can access the AI agents, and I can click generate on my checklist. So you can see here we've got some interpretation. So first off, we've tried to give it a score. So we're getting 74 out of 100 on here. So it's enabled, it has a managed identity, but it has a public endpoint. So there is a threat context here. We've got things that we should watch for. So I think we're looking all right on identity and access, but the trigger access is probably something we should look at. So here what this is saying is we haven't got any kind of whitelist or auth protecting the endpoint, so I should probably have a look at that. And then it's explaining where the security score comes from and some ideas about what things need attention down at the bottom here. And then, approximately how long that'll probably take if you want to sort that out. So really easy way to get a checklist. You can maybe save this as a PDF and pass it to your developer team and ask them to have a look at that and make some changes or feed that into future requirements. So quite a big video this time, man. We've done lots in the most recent release. So thank you for listening to what we've covered in the latest release of Turbo360.